I'm not going to say do it on your own, but I think you should follow your own lane. That would be my advice. I followed my own lane and I didn't give up. Yes, it's a fight. Yes, it's a struggle, but nothing comes easy, especially in the music industry.
Welcome to your weekly elevation, your dose of real strategies for real results in dance music. I'm Olivia, and today's conversation is with someone who's seen the industry from both sides of the table and is using that perspective to change how artists are treated. Mouna Dif started as a singer-songwriter who experienced firsthand what happens when artists don't understand the business side of music. From having her vocals used without approval to never getting paid for her work, these painful lessons could have pushed her out of the industry, but instead, they became the foundation for her approach as a manager and label executive. Now, after co-founding Quality Goods Records and working with artists like Uzi, she's bringing her artist-first philosophy to Compass Music Group. And what makes this conversation so valuable is her practical insights on protecting yourself in an industry that often takes advantage of creators who don't understand the business. From recognizing predatory deals to building strategic relationships that actually advance your career, this perspective offers a blueprint for navigating the industry without sacrificing your art or your dignity. Let's dive in. So you've had quite the journey from artist to manager to label founder. Give me some context.
Oh, I'm going to just tell you my story. I mean, I started singing and songwriting at an early age alongside the arts too. I was an illustrator and painter too, so I'm quite the creative and artistic person, first and foremost. And then I became, let's say, an active singer-songwriter in different music genres. I really started more on the live front of things. I had a band, we did touring. It was a different time, didn't necessarily record music. It was more like doing live. So there was original music, but also covers, etc. And it was what we call acid jazz. So it's very much inspired by Jamiroquai, Roisin Murphy from Moloko and all that. These were my inspirations at the time. I do come from a background where I love funk, disco, house, jazz, R&B, hip hop. I used to do break dance, Wow. I'm just passionate about music first and foremost, and fell in love with electronic music pretty naturally. I just loved dancing, and obviously I was really attracted to music that would make me dance. So the more upbeat kind of sound was really my go-to at a certain point. Then I started writing more and more in more the deep house kind of space, UK garage at the time. What we used to call also broken beat era. That's very much UK sound. To give you a background, my mother is British, my father is Northern African. So I grew up in different cultures, different countries, and I lived also in France. So, I pretty much was immersed into all these different kinds of sounds, very niche sounds. And my experience as an artist has been quite difficult in the sense of it. I was growing at a time as an artist where agents, managers weren't necessarily taking on developing acts or any sort of not top tier acts as we have today. Managers and agents would only work with big hit artists, So I went through a lot of terrible experiences, where there were no contracts that were signed. My music was dropped without necessarily, when I say my music, is my vocals were used in songs without me necessarily approving, remixes coming out of my music, and never really got paid. And I think all of that just made me feel more and more frustrated. And it did actually, quite affect my love for music, which is sad in a sense. So I tried to take a break away from all of that, but it's difficult. I mean, it's part of me. I love music. I love being in that scene, interacting with creators, etc. So, but apparently my character was more lenient to the business side of things. And also through my experience, I wanted to learn as much as possible and just maybe not maybe, that's what I love doing, protecting artists from basically being taken advantage of, and help them navigate the industry. And then naturally it all happened. I became tour manager for Uzi, then took over his management. I knew him way before the Uzi days in the hip hop scene. I actually did some music with him under his other moniker, DJ Trouble, which is a 2 times world champion. I actually have a record with Foreign Beggars if people want to
Wow.
dig in. So, but I wasn't enjoying it as much, if that makes sense, So, and I loved being a TM. I learned so much, and I just found that my personality was fitting, I don't know, the requirements, And I don't know, I just became manager naturally, started Uzi's record label, learned, trial and error, basically. I didn't necessarily have a mentor. And it just worked well. Then artists reached out to me for management. It just all fell into my lap, even though I had worked to get to that point. But it just all happened naturally. I wasn't looking to work for artists, it just, things came to me because I guess I had proved myself in a sense in the industry. And now, many years later, I have joined Compass Music Group, founded by Jay Rugavin, Blake Coppelson, Alec, who are, two of them are ex-managers from C3. And I joined the team 2 years ago. And yeah, I can call it my home now. I'm really happy. I'm being involved in more artist projects. I've took on bigger artists also. And that's pretty much it.
Amazing story. I have to ask,
Yes.
was it hard going from being on stage to behind the scenes? Was there a part of you that would look out, when your artists are playing and be like, wow, like that's what I wanted for myself? Did you have any of those moments?
No, not really. I think because I was a singer-songwriter and I started working more in the electronic music industry and being surrounded by DJs, I think I never really felt that way. It's just, I don't know, I can say that I just love seeing them being successful, go on stage, but I haven't really missed being on stage. It's a lot of pressure, like being at the forefront of everything, especially today, more than many years ago. Even years ago, it was pretty tough jumping on stage, I had to have like a little shot of vodka to relax, and stuff like that, all those singers tips, but that gave me all the tools that I needed to help guide artists today when they perform live, if that makes sense, and also be more sensitive to making sure that they're okay, that they're confident in what they are doing, in their vision and all that, because these are things I didn't benefit from in the past. So I'm just like more excited about sharing my experience and making sure that everything goes well for other people,
Right.
the artists that I represent.
Right. And I'm sure there's a level of trust that the artists have with you because they know that you know what it's like. You're speaking from experience, not from, what you perceive to be their struggles. You've experienced that firsthand. Talk to me about how your perspective as a woman in the industry has shaped your approach to leadership in a way that, men might not understand.
It's interesting because I did feel a lot of judgment because I was an outsider. When we launched Uzi's label, moved to Los Angeles, I come from Europe. So I had to already face the fact that I was a foreigner, not necessarily American, culturally speaking. I communicate differently. Maybe I'm more upfront or, I had to already deal with that. And then there was being a woman too. Do you see what I mean? Like, obviously, I would always have to deal with people that would just expect me to be the groupie or like the girlfriend of or this and that, I mean, I had to face a lot of people that would dismiss my presence, and which is sad in a sense because who cares who I am and what I'm really doing, or if there's anything that you benefit from talking to me, just acknowledge my existence as a human being. Let's be respectful of each other. And I feel like that it's been a little bit of battle, but at the end of the day, which is weird, but people respect me now because I have proved my worth, if that makes sense. And I feel like there was space for that. Like they're actually more respecting of where I'm at today. And because I think that somehow they all know that it is tough to get to where we are as a woman,
Mm-hmm.
Which is sad in a sense. They're like, oh, she knows what she's doing. Yes, I do. It does, it is possible.
Yes. Would you say that you have a more direct personality in
Yes.
general?
Yeah,
Me
absolutely.
too. And I feel like that's almost tougher to navigate situations sometimes because there's labels that are attached to that, non-agreeable, whatever. Go down the list of adjectives and they'll get more and more, derogatory.
There is, there is a lot of things. We need to change people's mentalities, men. It depends how they've been educated or brought up, but they have this certain expectancies from women being such and such, like being sweet or cute or kinder or more subtle, less argumentative and maybe less, strong. And that I have a strong will. If I have to defend my artists, I'm going to fight for them, but I'm going to fight for them in a fair way. But let's say if two men get into an argument in the business or whatever, when I say an argument, it's more like fighting for their artist's interests. It can be interpreted differently when it comes from a woman, that's when I know that there is still a lot of things that need to change, or a lot of, we need to help men understand that it's subconsciously a bias that they have, when a woman is, how do you say, standing up against you, or she's fighting for her artist's interest, it doesn't mean that she is like, how do you say, I don't want to be cursing,
No, you can. You absolutely
like
can.
being a bitch. It's
Yeah,
just,
right.
I know what I want to do, like you do, and I should get that same respect. Do you see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But I do feel like it is tougher. But there again, I got educated in a sense because I'm multicultural, and also I grew up in Northern Africa where women don't necessarily have the same kind of equal space to men, And I remember my father saying something since I was a child. He was like, as a woman, you will always have to work 10 times harder than a man to prove your worth. Yes, it's unfair, but that's the reality of it. That has always stuck with me. And that's why I understand, how difficult it is. Like, it should not be a constant battle too, but I love taking on challenges, but we all have different personalities, and, it's tough to continue fighting constantly. Do you see what I mean? It can be very exhausting.
Sure. In one of my ventures, I have a male business partner, and the conversations that we have, I mean, his eyes have been opened a lot. He's told me by the way that certain partners and different brands interact with me versus him, and the hoops that I have to jump through that he does not. And so I think it just takes literally working alongside a woman and being open to just being observant and seeing what they go through I've learned what's worked best for me is without trying to push, right? If I can preach at them and try to explain to them how I have a different experience all day long, but if I just let them observe for themselves, I've found that's worked really well for me.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about you. Has there been any time in your career where being underestimated as a woman has actually benefited you?
Yes, because it gives me space to, do my thing without anybody suspecting that I'm good at it. And then one day I just appear out of nowhere and this is where I am. They're like, I've been in those kind of situations quite a bunch of times, just business people that would tell me, yeah, you're not really qualified for that. We need a professional for this. I'm like, but as a woman, I feel like we're a little bit more honest and we don't sell ourselves like men do. Men are very confident, are taught to be that way, from an early age, and also it's a generational thing. Whereas us, we're much more honest, with like things that we can do better, etc. And I feel like that with men could be considered as weaknesses when I think it's a strength and it should be, respected. And also, but there is positives also. I think people also like the fact that I'm different, if that makes sense, like I bring them a fresh new perspective on things. And also my personality is different, than working with men all the time who interact in this same way, And I mean, if they don't accept who I am or me being honest and blunt, then it's not people that I want to work with. It's as simple as that. And I do think that there are a lot of men that are very supportive of women in this industry. It's just unfortunately there's not enough of us
Right.
still, right? At the end of the day, not a lot of us continue that fight because it's exhausting. I've had moments where I was like, is
Right.
this really what I want to be doing for many more years? And then I remember the other moments where everything else is, the glass half full and not half empty
Sure.
kind of thing.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's so much discussion about representation on the artist side, but I feel like we haven't really peeled back the curtain on the business
Oh,
side
yeah.
of music as thoroughly. And I, if you add more diverse perspectives to the business side, I think that's naturally going to mirror on the artist side as well. We need both.
We need both. I mean, I what I am saying is, yes, it's great to put more women on lineups or to have more women signed on labels and booking agencies. But if you put only men behind the scenes, holding the strings, I think at the end of the day, we're still being controlled in a sense. And I think the change needs to happen really from within and in depth. We need to have more women, photographers involved in male projects. We don't need, the change is not only about representing female artists, it's more about having more women involved on the back end, whether it's a photographer, whether it's a consultant or, but not necessarily only PR or etc., which I don't know why men consider that that's a woman's thing.
It's very strange, right?
Right?
I've noticed that. Yeah.
you know, women engineer. There are a few. And when you meet one, try and work with her more, and I think that's what we can do. It's just, you have to change that landscape. We have to be able to see more and more women working on the back end alongside men. And right now I feel like, unfortunately, men in this industry thinking just putting out a few women on lineups for a percentage and a good look thing is enough. No. Proof is today we should be doing way more, especially regarding the politics and how everything is going on around the world. I think now more than ever, we have to act a bit faster and make bigger changes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you have a really incredible roster of artists. What is your approach to artist development and how do you think that differs from your peers?
I don't try to apply a one strategy and replicate it to all my artists. I take time to get to know them, try and bring out what makes them special and different and stand out. For instance, I took on management of Dot. She's an absolutely amazing artist, and she's really, being in the outdoors, running is her thing. It's super important in her, music, creativity, and life balance. And I was like, let's work on that. Let's share that with people, because I feel like that's what's going to make you stand out also, as we are unfortunately in a world where we've got about 120k tracks dropping a day,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know how many artists that makes, but and social medias are not helping for visibility wise. So I feel like we just have to be as authentic as possible and as real as possible with who we are. I'm not saying you should fake a story. No, my goal here is to bring out what is already existent, if that makes sense, and just enhance it and make sure the artist embrace it, also is ready to do that. I'm never going to push them to do things that they don't want to do at the end of the day. It's their call, it's their project. But my goal is to try and develop a vision, an overall vision, and I intervene also on all different fronts. I mean, I come from an artistic background. I used to do photography, used to paint, used to do graphic design. I studied architecture, so I'm really sensitive about aesthetics and all that. And I think today music is visual, has to be visual, and I think that's important. So that's what I try to bring to all of my artists, is try and help them also have like a visual identity, a world of their own, but that corresponds to who they are. I'm not going to create something
Right.
and
Right.
If that makes
It's
sense.
it's all those things you just talked about is so important because with the amount of music coming out every single day, it is not enough to artists. I post about this on TikTok a lot and people always get mad at me. They're like, and I say, saying your new track is out now is not enough to get me to care. I have in my top 50 artists, top 50 favorite artists of all time, there's maybe 3 of them that if they said there's a new track out today, I would run to my streaming platform to
Hmm.
go listen. And it's the ones that make me care about who they are as a person, invite me into their world, like you said. And I feel that I can either align with them on something other than the music, or maybe they're in a totally different realm, but I just appreciate, how deeply vested they are in their own interest or their own aesthetics or whatever it may be. And I think a lot of artists, newer artists, have a hard time reckoning with that because it seems like so much extra work.
Hmm.
But in reality, you've always had to build a brand for yourself
Of
as an
course.
artist.
And
Britney
you've had to work
Spears,
even harder for it, in the past. Like you'd have to transform your lifestyle, everything.
right. Now we have, I feel like social media is this tool that makes it easier to, even though you're cutting through so much noise, we have more tools in our pocket to create that content, to share your life. And I think women in particular just really do a phenomenal job because maybe one advantage that we have is it's not seen necessarily as cringy to share our interest in fashion or home or whatever. Like, I feel like sometimes men have a harder time being vulnerable about their other interests and women do not.
Mm, 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 mm. Or even, representing women artists recently, because that was something really important for me. I felt like I was in the right space and I had enough experience to be able to help them, and it is tough for them too, and even tougher because women are judged much more harshly on social media. They're
Yes.
judged about their physique, their
Yes.
weight, um, and
Clothing
also,
choices,
yes, or like,
everything.
are you actually producing your music? This is not
Yeah.
it. You don't know anything. You're just pressing on a button. So they have to deal with all this bullying online, which is not good. But I feel like men don't have to deal with as much. They still have to deal with a few things to create a difference, but I think not as much as women. Women aren't
Mhm.
allowed to make a mistake. you know,
That's very true.
Whereas men will get away with a few mistakes and it's okay. I feel like we're more understanding and more accepting. But today, with the artists that I work with, I really try to, men, women, or whatever, I don't care, you have to do the same job, create a world of your own, share your world with your fans, make them become your hardcore fans, make them eager to be part of that world, to connect with your core values. When I say core values, whether it's passion for fashion, or like, oh, I love sneakers. I mean, it doesn't need to be something really like deep and emotional. It can be just like your passion.
I think of Eats Everything, who literally just posts videos of him eating different things in different cities. I mean, it's so simple, but it's effective.
Yes, right. And I think that's important today. And I feel like I completely agree with you. There is actually more possibilities for artists today to make a difference. But yes, it's extra work. That's why our role as a manager is to guide the artist and try and give them techniques or give them examples of what other artists do and help them, find their voice. And it does take time. But once it's
Mhm.
done, you're gonna have a solid foundation that is gonna last you long term. You know,
Right.
I always say, think long term, don't think short term. Yes, there are so many quick strategies to be an overnight success, like, which I don't really believe in, like being an overnight success. But if you have money, yes, you can make lots of stuff happen super quickly. But what about longevity?
Right.
That's difficult.
Absolutely.
You have to give more and more. You always have to do at least as well as what you did previously and hopefully better, and that's draining. That's a lot of pressure, so
Right. Right. And it requires either more capital or more of your time. That is something that we talk about so frequently on this show, and why so many artists have shared with me that they're hesitant to go viral because that's what you were saying. Then you have to perform at that level or better versus just building a steady incline of super fans who are vested in you, will ride with you, no matter what. There's artists out there that like I'm a super fan of that have sometimes put out tracks that I don't vibe with, but that doesn't deter me from continuing to follow their journey and be a fan, right? So that's the real goal at the end of the day, because that also makes a lot more sense for your bottom line. Those are the people that will go see every show. They'll see you every time you're in town, and they'll travel to go see you.
And that will support you along the way, even when you want to switch sound and everything. And I think I work also with artists that have been in the game for many, many years, such as Uzi, who what we call a legacy act. And, there is a hardcore fan base, and it's also keeping them engaged. And if he wants to switch direction, we need to tell that story. That's why I say it's important for people to be, when I say authentic, doesn't mean that there is authentic and fake. It's not that. Authentic is just being more personal, more vulnerable, more real. We're all humans at the end of the day. We all have like our concerns. We're all judging ourselves and being harsh on ourselves. And, and I think your fans, unfortunately, we're in a world where we have to explain what we're doing and why we're doing it. If you want to switch sound, why is this song special for you? Why did you do this collaboration with this other artist? Do you see what I mean? And I feel all of this is important, and it has to be shared. It's
Absolutely.
A lot of work, but that's why you need to build the right team around you that can bring you that support to deliver on that extra, work.
Of course. Yeah. And that is the goal for so many artists. It's very rare that I get to speak to someone on the business side, a woman on the business side of this industry. It's typically men. And I have spoken to a lot of women artists, but for the women who listen to this show who want to get into the business side and they want to lead in this industry, but they don't feel like they have a lot of examples to follow, what do you tell them?
I mean, there are examples. It's just you have to dig. You have to look at their history. I remember I was a little bit obsessed by DJ Snake and Amy Thompson because, she worked with Swedish House Mafia, and I was like, wow, these are like huge acts, and the way she took them. And nobody would necessarily mention their name. I think there's more than we think. Women behind the scenes. It's just, unfortunately, I am seeing a lot of them, like they're plateauing at some point. I'm not going to say do it on your own, but I think you should follow your own lane. That would be my advice. I followed my own lane and I didn't give up. Yes, it's a fight. Yes, it's a struggle, but nothing comes easy, especially in the music industry. It's also, we're blessed to be able to do this job, work in a domain that we're passionate about. And I think that makes it worth fighting for. And I followed my own lane. I did not have a mentor. I wish I did, but maybe if I did, maybe it would have changed my journey. Maybe it would have influenced my journey. Would I still be where I'm at today? I feel like it has made me a stronger, confident woman, and I'm not going to take on the same amount of stuff that I took on a few years ago, even though there's always things that you have to deal with as you grow, but just follow your own lane.
Yeah.
And communicate with other women. But from experience, don't think because we are women that we're always going to be supportive of each other.
It's just a great caveat. It's so true. It is so true. And I'm so happy that you said, not happy, but I'm just pleasantly surprised that you said that you didn't have a mentor, because I do a lot of just looking into artist biographies of the people that I admire. And some of my favorite artists have also said they never had a mentor. And it's amazing because they have skyrocketed to this superstar status. And I think that I've said that before too. I wish I had a mentor. I wish I had someone who understood what I was trying to build, being in this journalism, podcasting lane and dance music. And I'm also kind of happy that I don't, because mentors can sometimes pass off their bad habits or opinions of things they're biased that can skew you. So sometimes it's better not to have one.
And it's better to make your own mistakes too, and also you'll be proud of what you've accomplished. You know that you did it on your own.
Right. Right.
And it's maybe it sounds tough in a sense, but it goes back to what I said earlier. We have to prove ourselves way more than men. And if we can prove that we've done it on our own, even though it's been a tough journey, I can tell you in this industry, they do respect us when we get to that level, because I think deep inside they know it's not easy,
Right. Absolutely.
I think
Absolutely.
so.
And I think too, it helps you develop your own intuition more,
Yeah.
which is an
And that's our
incredible skill
strength
set.
as
Yes.
women, is our intuition. That's something that we have. Our emotions, we're taught, having emotions is being weak. So old school. No, it's not. Emotions are beautiful, should be embraced, should be lived. Yes, you got to learn how to control them. When I say control them, it's more like the intensity of them, and maybe just sit back and think about your emotions. Why are you having these emotions? How can I deal with these situations better, etc. But at the end of the day, I think this is our strength too, our intuition. I thrive on intuition. And the times where I make mistakes is when I go against my intuition,
100%. And you always know, you always know, you're like, well, I knew better, I say, I told you so to myself all the time,
We're
sometimes
always
you just,
hopeful.
yes, 100%. But, it's a beautiful thing to develop an intuition, and it's something that comes with age too, I think, and experience. You have to go through something that helps inform your intuition.
Mm.
Is there anything in the industry that gives you hope that you would like to share?
Oh, I had to think about that. I don't know. I think I'm not going to necessarily talk about only industry. I think we're living challenging times, but I think it gives space for maybe a change, but in the way that we are living, but also the way that we are listening and appreciating music and supporting people. Maybe it will bring more empathy. My father said something very interesting. He said to me, sometimes you need everything to go to shit in order to have a beneficial change that we're all waiting for. So I think I'm staying really positive, because I'm seeing, if we want to discuss about music in general, I'm seeing all these emergences of niche sounds, and I'm loving it. I'm like, ooh, this is good, and we're seeing also the numbers and the stats on the back end. People are not only listening to the top 5 main genres: hip hop, country, R&B, no. There's a lot of subgenres coming up, niche sounds. There's not only one size fit all type of careers. And I think that is beautiful, and that is great. And I think that's super positive for artists today, where in the past, in order to make a living, you had to tour. Well, now you can make a living in multiple ways. There's Patreon, there's streaming. Yes, it's tough, but for some, it's beneficial. They don't tour, writing music for other people, selling merch, sample packs, brand partnerships, it's for us to sing placements, writing music for, TV when you receive briefs. And I feel like we should embrace all those different things, And so that's what is making me feel excited about right now, what's going on. I feel like things are changing. And I think people are fed up of being stuck doing the same thing on and on, doing it the old ways. And I feel like people are going to be ready for changes, serious changes.
Yeah, I love that. That's such a positive note to end on. And it's always important to hear from people who are working in the industry to have that positive perspective, because I think a lot of what's on social media is doom and gloom all the time. And so it's our job to actively fight against that and to give people some real tangible hope. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you. This has been such a lovely conversation. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having me. I've enjoyed this.
That is your weekly elevation. What strikes me about Mouna's approach is how she's transformed her own negative experiences into protection for the artists she's worked with. That is some superhero shit. Her journey reminds us that understanding the business side of music is not just about making money, it's about maintaining control of your creative vision. The relationships she's built throughout her career weren't based on superficial networking or social media connections. They came from constantly delivering value, proving herself through results, and building genuine trust with the right people. That's a strategy any artist can apply, regardless of where you're at in your journey. Remember, success in dance music isn't about luck, it's about strategy. I'll talk to you next week for episode 100.